What is going on, everyone? This is Miles Dompier, and welcome to the 87th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be granted the rare privilege to be joined by the prestigious member of the Iron Lords podcast and co-host of Defining Duke, Lord Cognito. How you doing on this fine Saturday, my man?
Going on. Happy Thanksgiving, Miles Dompier. What's going on? Making my rare appearance. You know, I'm trying to get back out in these podcast streets. It's been a minute. I'm rusty. I haven't guested in so long, but got to do it, my man. And I'm glad that the schedule's aligned. But I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, man. Holidays was good. Got a chance to recharge a little bit. You know, got a chance to game, which I really enjoy. Got some games finished.
Yeah.
But,
What'd you power through? What'd you get through?
All right, so I knocked out Pentiment. You know what I'm saying? Knocked out Pentiment. Got that done. Shout out to Josh Sawyer, man. Amazing. We was able to, fortunate to talk to him on Defining Duke and just to pick his brain. That game really surprised me because I was hating Miles. I remember when I first saw it, because remember, I'm Team Obsidian. So I remember when I first saw it, and I was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a AAA. It's going to be this, that. And then when I saw the art style, I was like, oh, I don't know. But then karma has prevailed, gave it a chance. It is some of the best writing in gaming, some of the best murder investigation. And what I love it really utilizes like a time mechanic. So you don't have all the evidence to put it together, but you have to go with what you know. And I would highly recommend get to the first murder. And by Act 2, I was hooked. So Pentiment got done. I got Somerville done. So shout out to Somerville, shout out to people over there, my boys from Jump Ship. Those are part of the team that made Inside. A lot to talk about. They're very distinct indie if you're a fan of games like Another World, things like that, kind of like atmospheric storytelling where they don't tell you what's going on. What's that? The distance? Who's that? What's going? You know what I mean? Like, and I will say it's not Inside still a GOAT, but I will say the second half of that game, man. It heated up to something special, especially ending. And the last thing I've been playing with the homies, surprisingly, Grounded. I am like team Grounded, bro. So yeah, those are the games I've been really rocking out. Aside from my other major games, my Destinies and all my other stuff that I.
The daily grind. You know, the squad and I, we've been going through all of our battle passes, making the rounds each night, but. Yeah, I'm excited to see Obsidian get some love. Obsidian continues to be just one of the best and most consistent developers around. Those dudes just, not only are they killing it in one genre, they're killing it in every genre that they touch, which is really impressive. So excited to see what's next. The Outer Worlds 2, big fan of the first one. I'm so ready to see that sequel. I'm excited to see some Avowed. I mean, there's a lot. If you're an Obsidian fan,
definitely. It's my number one draft pick for Xbox Game Studios. I tell people all the time.
That's it. So if you've been on Twitter, if you've been on social media, it's been a week. There's been a lot of major developments, and we're going to be diving into all of them here. I was joking last week and earlier this week that it's a holiday. It's an American Thanksgiving. It's going to be a dead news week. And sure enough, no, they spit right in my face and said, you know what? No, actually, we're going to dump every major development possible all in 1 week, all in a brief 3 days. So we have a lot to dive into. We're going to be talking about Call of Duty exclusivity. Once again, the newfound 10-year deal. We're going to be talking about the FTC reportedly blocking the deal entirely. We're going to be talking about new Xbox hardware. We're going to be talking about updated Xbox Game Pass subscriber numbers and more. But first, Cog, for the folks who don't know, and I'm sure most people already do, give us a quick breakdown of who you are and where they can find you.
No doubt. So I am at Lord Cognito on Twitter of the Iron Lords podcast. So basically, Iron Lord podcast is kind of like 4 lifelong friends who, you know, we played together, games so many times together, whether it be in real life, growing up in the South Bronx, 4 TVs, Halo, local LAN parties, you know. So for me, you know, my house became like the oasis for people to come through to get away, you know, and just game from their problems, right? So that's how it originally started. It evolved as we got older, moved away into Xbox Live party chats, and people would tell us, and shout out to Addict, man. I always got to give him his flowers, you know. He's the brainchild to get me to say, you know what, these conversations that we're having in these parties let's do something. So again, that's the formation of Iron Lords podcast. Initially Destiny only, and people are like, we like you, but we don't like hear Destiny all day. We like you talk about all the other consoles, so we made it more multi-platform there. And so you catch us every Sunday, the Lord's Day Iron Lord podcast YouTube channel. I'm also the CEO of lordsofgaming.net. That is our sister site, and it's pretty much giving basically up and coming talent, kind of giving people a heads up on what's going on in the industry. And I'm so thankful for that. I know we don't get into thankful, but I'm so thankful for that, for people want to write for us. And then I also do a podcast with Mr. Matty Plays. It's an Xbox focused podcast. It's called Defining Duke, and that is on Last Stand Media. And we also bring that on feeds, free feeds also as well. There's so much I do. I mean, the Last Word podcast, and that's a Destiny focused podcast. For the people who are mad that we were doing too much Destiny or our Lost podcast, I got the Last Word podcast, and that's with my man E. Bontis and Ty Guy Travis. And so much going on. Obviously, most people know that obviously I do work for Meta.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of people here know you. I love you, love having you on. Glad we get to hang out. But if you haven't checked out all the amazing things, Iron Lord's one of the funniest podcasts around every single week, whether you're watching or listening, just gut busting, legitimately some of the funniest conversations. So love you guys over there. Check them out if you haven't. Some quick housekeeping before we get into the bulk of today's show. You may have noticed if you're watching live that things are a little different. Talked about this last week on last week's episode, but moving forward, Xbox Chaturdays will stream live on youtube.com/Miles Dompier. So you might be familiar with it over on youtube.com/Windows Central Gaming, but we're making some moves behind the scenes. We've shifted things over a little bit. So there's going to be a transitional period. This is episode number 2. We had Modern Vintage Gamer on last week. So, if you're new, appreciate you tuning in. If you're returning, hit that like button, share it out, spread the word. We got to let people know because it's not going to be appearing in the other feed anymore. So appreciate everyone doing that. As this is a brand new channel, cool features like super chats, they're not going to be popping up in YouTube. This channel is not monetized. It's a couple weeks old, so we got to, do that grind, hustle that up. But in the interim, I have dropped a link in the chat for those who want a comment or question shared with everybody. I built it up so it'll pop up on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. So you have a little fancy little pop-up that shows your question for the whole world to see. So appreciate that. Appreciate everyone who tuned in last week because I had so many people submit questions at the same time that my PayPal account was blocked. So they're like, there's suspicious activity. Shut it down. So I had to talk to PayPal support and get that corrected. So appreciate you guys, but that was pretty funny to see. Any other housekeeping? I think that's it. So before we get into the news and all of the big developments this week, as you touched on, this week was Thanksgiving in America. And so I want to take a second to, let everyone know what we're thankful for this year. Because it's a time to reflect. It's a time to eat a bunch of food. But as we look back on 2022 and as we look forward to 2023, Cog, what are you thankful for this year?
I'm thankful for so much. I think for me, first is health. A lot of people know that I'm big on a health is wealth initiative and trying to, as gamers, we got to do better. We're sitting in front of these games for so long and, we don't do necessarily the things we need to do to keep ourselves around. So just maintaining health, being healthy, and actually going to address things that, that was slacking. You know what I'm saying? I got some stuff done with my eyes and some other things going. So I'm thankful for health. I'm thankful for family, for holding me down during tough times. I'm thankful for gaming, man. Gaming gives me so much, brother. Like it literally birthed where I am. I'm in the industry because of video games. Video games saved my life. And I got some amazing my brothers, Lord King, Lord Addict, Lord Soft. Like those are my bros. You know what I'm saying? They hold me down, and we are legit friends. Like that's what people don't realize. After the lights go off, those are the homies. So I'm thankful for them. And I would say just everyone that has reached out to me and said, hey Cog, like the podcast helped me get through a tough time, or hey Cog, when you put up a gym pic or something that help, like that means a lot, because a lot of times it's tough to keep going sometimes. But so salute to everybody in the community. I'm thankful for the community, because without the community, I wouldn't be here. So I always try to be humble and pay it back. So those are most things I'm thankful for.
That's beautiful. I mean, the community is such a big part of what we do and why it's fun. Because before I was on podcast, or before I worked at Windows Central, or before I was, quote, in the industry or whatever, I was just somebody online who liked to talk about video games. And I was listening to podcasts, jumping in the chat, interacting with people like Jez. And then, a few years later, that kind of led to me being in the space and being somebody that people tune into, which, again, I always joke about how that's weird that anyone cares about what we say when it comes to video games, but it genuinely means a lot. So yeah, obviously I'm hugely thankful for everyone who's kind of joined me on this transition as I start my own channel. That's been huge. I appreciate everyone who reads, watches, checks out any of the work that I've done in the past. And I'm thankful for everyone who is here because they love video games and want to talk about video games. And that is huge. That is why we're all here. That brings us together, regardless of, whether you're a journalist or a gamer or whatever the conversations typically kind of devolve in. Whether you like PlayStation, whether you like Xbox, whether you like Nintendo, there's a lot of things that we use to kind of separate each other and separate these groups. But ultimately, why we're all here is because we love video games. And I think that is beautiful. I'm also incredibly thankful as I look to the last couple months. Things have been chaotic. It's been a chaotic in the games industry. You've seen a lot of layoffs. You've seen a lot of transitions. There's been a lot of things happening. So I'm very grateful for the people who have been supportive. Very grateful for my wife, who's been hugely supportive. I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for her support and encouragement. So yeah, there's a lot to be thankful for this year. I'm also going to be going to the Game Awards for the first time ever this year. So I'm excited about that, making the trip out to LA. Nice. Game Awards is December 8th. My birthday is December 9th. So, it'll be nice. It'll be fun. We're going to have a good time. Hopefully Jeff gives me something good for my my birthday this year,
There we go. The new up-and-coming content creator of the year, Miles Dompier. You can hand that plaque. There we go. Give you a little speech. Get it ready. No, that's dope, man. I got to get out there. I got to get out there for sure, too. That's something on the bucket list I got to do. But yeah, salute to you. I love the proximity to the birthday. That's fine.
Yeah, so yeah, it's fun. I'm very excited because I was debating it. I wasn't going to go originally, but I've had a lot of people like, all right, come on. You need to get out here and go. And I was like, all right. Let's go. Let's make the trip. Let's get out there. Let's get out to LA and let's do it. So excited about that.
Salute.
And with that being said, let's jump into our first topic today, which is some new Xbox hardware. And this is something catered for you retro Xbox fans out there, because the mad lads at Hyperkin are at it again. They infamously brought back the Duke in all its thick glory, that big, bulking monstrosity of a controller. That came back in a big way. And now they're going back and they are releasing the Xenon, which is an officially licensed replica of the Xbox 360 controller. And so that's another big deal as well, because the 360 controller, iconic. I remember when that thing first dropped, and I remember holding it and thinking to myself, this is the best controller ever made. This controller just hits. Feels right, the asymmetrical joysticks, all the grip, the hand, everything about that, the bumpers, everything just felt so good. That Xbox 360 controller just, In hindsight, going back, now that we've had a few iterations, it's a little funky. It's a little maybe a little ugly even. No shade towards it, but it's a weird looking controller. But no price or release date has been revealed, but they said it's gonna be coming in red, black, pink, and white. Some modern enhancements, 3.5 millimeter jack, and a detachable USB-C cable. Cog, how are you feeling about the Xenon? You going to be snagging one of these bad boys?
I might. I mean, the 360 is, man, so many memories. That's like pinnacle Xbox for me. That era was when I really, took to the platform even more so, and I agree completely with you. I think that that controller, the form factor, the asymmetrical, the off-center sticks, you know what I'm saying? It made me realize why this feels better for FPS. Like FPS just felt so natural, and the bumpers and everything. Now what is it? I didn't even know it was called the Nexus button. I just call it the Xbox Home or Xbox Live button. In the center, you press that joint. Remember the blades? The blades would come up.
Blades. Oh, yeah. Take me back.
Bro, the blades, Xbox Live, it's so many good more. Like I always tell people, like that was the Peter Moore don't get his flowers. Like the Peter Moore era of Xbox 360 was fine, but now definitely I'll look into that. You know what I mean? And I agree with you as well that the iterations since then have made the controller even more better. But at that time, for what we had, it was special. So salute, I gotta go get that.
Yeah, because that was off the back of the Dreamcast controller. Again, no shade on the Dreamcast controller, but oof, the N64 controller.
Oh,
Oof.
the Batarang.
Oh, come on. We did some weird stuff in the early
Yeah.
2000s, guys. All right? Late 90s, early
Indeed.
2000s. It was the Wild West for game design, for hardware design. It was about looking cool. It didn't matter how it felt or how it played. It just had to look sick. And then the 360 controller, I think, was the first iteration that looked sick at the time, but also felt really great to hold. So,
Oh yeah.
one caveat here that I want to discuss that's
Let's go.
very unfortunate.
Let's go.
There's no wireless capabilities on the Xenon Cog. This is a wired Xbox 360 replica. Is that a deal breaker?
It'd be a deal breaker. It's a deal breaker to use it. Yeah, like it now becomes a collector's piece. Now because because the reality is I need to be untethered. I need to be able to run around. You know what I'm saying? And do what I need to do. So yeah, I hate attach. Like the only time, like when I'm attaching, that means my charge is dead and I'm forced. You know what I'm saying? Like that's literally when that happens. Like, so it's a little bit of a knock up of points for me. What about you?
I bought the Duke. I was excited because, you know, I'm one of those freaks who actually really likes the feel of the Dukes. And I think, you know, bear with me here, the new bumpers at the very top on that Duke Hyperkin, that's like max ergonomics right there. Holding that beast, holding that pie with two slices taken out of it, holding that thing. I don't know. I just really like it. Love the placement of the bumpers. Loved how my hand sat so naturally on it. But like you said, man, I'm only plugging stuff in when I have to. So I got the Beauty just sitting in a box because I used it a few times. Realized I had to plug it in and said, no, I don't care enough. Like, the novelty's fun. I played Halo Combat Evolved with it. And then I was like, all right, this can just sit in the box.
I'm good. I got it out of my system.
But if it was wireless, I guarantee I'd be more inclined to use it. So I know Xbox is weird about the licensing for its wireless tech. There's almost no third-party controllers that use it. I think Scuff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Scuff controllers might be the only third parties that use the Xbox wireless tech. But on the headset side of things, there's so many officially licensed headsets that use the wireless tech. So I don't know if it costs too much or if Microsoft doesn't want anyone to have it or what the deal is, but Xbox with Hyperkin making these retro accessories for your console that cater to the legacy of your platform. Please, I beg of you, figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you because it's a shame. It takes away, you know, from the actual functionality and usability of it. And we really want to take it to that next level. If we truly want to use it and stay in that retro vibe. So yeah, I probably think it's some type of, you know, the tech and some type of securities with that, and maybe they're being extremely protective of that in reference to Hyperkin and third party. Yeah. But yeah, it's a shame because I mean, at one point it's a shame because obviously we want to use it, but then there's another part that maybe they want to protect that entity. So I kind of get it, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'll just say that if this was wireless, no questions, questions whatsoever. I would be there day one. With it being wired, it's probably going to be a maybe on sale kind of thing for me. Just again for the novelty. Go back, play some Halo 3 with the original 360 controller, and say, "All right, I'm good," and then move on. Huge shout out to everyone who's joining us live. Thanks so much. Again, we are streaming on a new channel, same time, Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time, but on youtube.com/Miles Dompier. If you're watching live, hit that like button, share it out. We got a super chat from our boy Nick59524, who says, "One more week until Callisto Protocol." Can't wait.
Yeah, that looks fire.
What's your hype level on Callisto Protocol?
Nah, Callisto's up there, man. Again, it just what's crazy is like December just got so wild, man. It's so many games coming, but yeah, Callisto looks amazing. There's no doubt about it. Definitely up on the list.
Yeah, that's definitely day one. That's for the rest of the year. Granted, there's like 1 month left in the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That's my most anticipated game by a lot. Stoked for High on Life. Definitely gonna check that out. But Callisto Protocol, as a big Dead Space guy, I'm ready. There's been some controversy with the season pass.
The animations of the season of animations.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard, we'll touch on this real quick. It was announced that Callisto Protocol, which is one of the current gen only games, so it's going to be a $70 game. They announced that there's going to be a season pass for the title, and they announced that one of the first things coming with this season pass is not new campaign DLC or expansions, but actually death animations. So, how do you feel about that? Would you shell out extra cash to watch our protagonist die horrifically in slightly different ways?
Yeah, this is a weird flex for me. Like I was trying to be understanding to it because obviously, it's a game that you're gonna die a lot, and I get it, but I just don't know how that sits with me that animations are behind a season pass, right? You know what I'm saying, kind of thing. And yeah, it's just weird. I saw, the devs come out and try to make some statements in defense of it, but it's I'm not gonna say it's unprecedented, but I can't remember anything similar to this. Like I was trying to go back, like, usually it's the cosmetic aspect, and it's usually, you get a skin or you get something that from that standpoint, but literally animations that contribute to something in the game that you're going to be doing frequently, like dying. Yeah, that's a little weird flex to me that you kind of got that in there. But listen, they're gonna have to get ahead of it because right now, the media take on it hasn't. I feel the reception has not been positive. So let's see what happens. I'm curious to see if there's an adjustment in the thinking.
It's not good PR when you immediately have to come out after announcing this and say, "Oh, hold on, this is stuff this wasn't done. We're not holding anything back. This is stuff that we're going to be working on after the game ships. Don't worry." So people aren't stoked when you have to come out immediately and address the controversy surrounding it. And it is just weird. Again, it's no shade, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding this, but Dead Space 3, this feels like something that would be in Dead Space 3's rollout. Like, oh, you want new animations? $10. New death. We know you love to die. We know this franchise and this genre is built upon dying horrifically and having these cool animations. We flexed all of these cool animations in our trailers leading up to launch. Now you want more? $10, baby. Let's go. And it's like, what?
Yeah, that's
so. I imagine there will be more, and I imagine they probably thought people would just be excited, like, "Ooh, I love the way he dies. That's cool. That's a cool little bonus." But as you've touched on, people aren't that stoked about the whole rollout. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm still excited. I'm not, I've learned my lesson with a lot of season passes. At this point in my life, I don't really buy season passes ahead of time anymore because there's been so many times where the season pass rollout has been just pretty mediocre, pretty weak. And then at the end, you're like, I spent $40 on this. Come on now. It took a year and a half for me to get 4 things I didn't actually play. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what I'm saying? You get that, the FOMO, I think it's to take advantage of the FOMO, and as us as gamers, when you love a product, I think instinctually you want to support all aspects of it, right? You're like, yo, I love this. I'm so hyped. I'm so pumped. I'm going to get the season pass. I'm going to get the DLC. I'm going to get the, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I agree with you. As I've gotten older, it's more like, all right, let me wait and see on certain things, especially stuff I'm skeptical about. Like, let me wait and see before I do this full-on commitment, because I don't even know if I'm going to actually like the base thing first. Let me get to that. And then once you know what I'm saying? Like, once you convince me with your base product, then maybe, okay, I'll contribute. But when it comes to like intrinsic features like death animations, yeah, they misread. They didn't read the rule right. They didn't read the rule right on this one. And we're gonna see how it plays out. Does it stop me from wanting to get the game and being interested in the game? But as far as that pass, I don't know, fam.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll talk negatively about this, but then I look at the Resident Evil 4 Deluxe Edition for an extra $10, and all you get is sexy Leon costumes, and I'm like, oh damn, day one, son, let's go. So I know who I am. I know who I am. I know what, I'll complain about one thing and then turn around the next second and spend the extra $10 on something somebody else looks at and says, dog, that's absolutely stupid. They're charging $10 for that? So different strokes for different folks, but it was an interesting little development surrounding a very highly anticipated game. And I also have to give a quick shout out to the shade thrown by the System Shock studio head, who came out on Twitter and quote tweeted that and said, our game will not have a season pass.
Ooh.
Because if you remember, when Gotham Knights was getting absolutely roasted for being 30 FPS, Callisto Protocol quote tweeted it and said, our game will be 60 FPS. So some juicy shade thrown there by the System Shock team.
Yeah, shots fired. Yeah, they going at it. They throwing a little ball. I ain't even peeped that. Good catch. I didn't even peep that. Wow.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's been a week full of industry drama. And we're going to be getting into a bulk of it here. So strap in, y'all. We got a lot to cover. If you haven't been in the loop, there have been so many huge developments surrounding the Activision Blizzard King acquisition. I know we constantly joke about how we're all sick of talking about it and we're all sick of hearing about it, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it together. I need your strength. I need your energy because, man, it has been a week. I talked about the start of the show, but I can't believe that all of this nonsense happened this week of all weeks.
Ooh.
But let's start with the 10-year Call of Duty deal, which is broke. So one of the big developments this week came from the New York Times, who put out a report that's saying, as of early November of this year, that Microsoft and company have reached out to Sony and they have offered them a 10-year parity deal for Call of Duty, essentially ensuring that it would stay multi-platform for a decade. This is a huge upgrade over the original 3-year deal, which Jim Ryan infamously called, quote, inadequate. So, Xbox heard Jim Ryan's criticisms regarding the three-year deal and said, all right, bro, what if we multiply that by 3 and give you a year? Is that going to be enough for you? So we know Phil Spencer's been making the rounds. He's been going on interviews, talking about Call of Duty exclusivity, talking about not taking games away. He's been pressured by folks like The Verge, like, all right, what do you mean you have to sign up for Game Pass or you have to do X, Y, and Z? And he's like, no, native. You can play Call of Duty native on PlayStation. That's it. That's the end of it. I'm tired of talking about it. Please. But he has to, because this is a huge deal, and there's been a lot of questions, and Call of Duty is a big franchise. So obviously, Sony has declined to comment on this extension, this offer of 10 years of Call of Duty multi-platform. So what is your read on Microsoft extending this offer? Why is Microsoft going above and beyond to give PlayStation 10 years?
We got to be clear. Like this thing is huge. When what is it, 67 billion for this one, and the scope of this is different, I will admit, than obviously the ZeniMax situation. So then we have Call of Duty at the center of this, right? Which we do know, is a huge game. And on top of that, Sony currently has the marketing rights. And then obviously if Microsoft completes the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, they'll own it. And then the concern is what will happen, right? What will happen in a world where Microsoft has control of Call of Duty? And to me, this is Microsoft being, proactive, right? Trying to get in front of any concerns a regulator might have and PlayStation might have. Like, hey, once we get it, we're going to do something nefarious with it, and we're going to keep it away. You can't have that. This is us. This is us.
Ours now.
And now we'll talk to you when we talk to you what we want to do with it, right? So the way I've seen Phil get out in front of everything is kind of like, they want to treat this like Minecraft, right? And Minecraft is actually, it's a great precedent that it exists in the sense that it's like, okay, this is a game that is going to be multi-platform. It's going to remain multi-platform, and it's a huge game, right? And that's the same mentality they want to take with Call of Duty. Look, PlayStation, we are not going to remove this from you. We're not going to make any features exclusive, things like that. And the initial talks that we had were, I guess, what was it, 3 years? We're going to extend this, slap another 7 on it, make it 10, let you know that, because I think at one point the fear was, well, maybe the 3 was a nefarious plan for this console generation. And then once, Xbox Series Z come out and PlayStation 6, then they can, turn the switch off. And it's like, you don't have Call of Duty. And it's like, nope, 10 years. And, what you see the comments that Phil and Microsoft is coming out and saying that, look, the reason why, because I guess the counter was like, well, why don't you make it in perpetuity? And it's just, that's not how deals are done, right? Anything can happen. You don't even know if Call of Duty is going to have that same value if you want to still be kind of invested in it in that way. So I think that's it. Now, the interesting thing is the fact that when this information came out about the 10-year offer, Sony declined comment. That is very interesting to me because to me, that denotes that that deal was not accepted. And we will get into what I think further about that. But yes, that's what, to your initial question, the 10 years is assurances. This is to show regulators that we are not going to do nothing evil. We're going to keep it on that platform. And let's be honest, it's to Microsoft's benefit, because even though there's one strategy that says, hey, you take Call of Duty and then everyone becomes a Game Pass subscriber, there's no guarantee, because at the end of the day, there are going to be people in the PlayStation ecosystem that will not come over to Xbox, right? So why not? Those people that play Call of Duty, you still get the revenue from them paying that $70, right? And you still be able to do it fund everything. So I think that's what's going on here, and it's posturing to show the regulators they're playing nice. But what do you think, man? 10 years? Where you at?
I mean, that's incredibly generous. As we touched on, there's been people who coming out and saying, well, why doesn't Microsoft just, if they're really not planning to take it away, why doesn't Microsoft just say, all right, we're going to keep it on PlayStation forever? And like you said, there's no legal precedent. That's never going to happen. There's not going to be a legal document that says, all right, we'll give you this forever, regardless of what happens, regardless of what changes. And then if we can't deliver that to you, we're sued. Like that contract would never be drafted. And even if it was, it would never be signed by any parties. It's just, that's not the reality of how business is done. So 3 years, I think, is pretty standard, because there's no guarantee that after 3 they would take it away. It would probably just go to a renegotiation period. And again, you know, as much as Microsoft's playing nice, I wonder if that would allow them to be like, all right, well, we're starting to take back some of that market share. So now if you want to keep Call of Duty on your platform, we're going to take more of a cut. All right, you can still get it, but we want that revenue split to be more in our favor. You're going to be getting less of a piece of that pie, and those are probably the things that Microsoft, from a business level, were aiming for when they had 3 years. Because I do believe Phil Spencer, and I do believe the team when they say, we want to keep this on PlayStation, because you look at all the money that it makes. And you, again, some people will make the switch, some people won't. But if you just leave it everywhere, as you do with Minecraft, as you do with a lot of other big IP, and just let it be this money machine, this thing just turning out dollars every single year. Like, I'm sorry, as much as exclusives are a big deal, we know they're a big deal, and Microsoft is investing in exclusives, but when you have something on that caliber, why not just leave it where it is and just let that money come in? And I think from a business standpoint, that's where Microsoft is at. Obviously, they want to leverage Game Pass hard. Obviously, they're going to, once all of the legal contracts with PlayStation, ironically, all of their exclusivity ends with Call of Duty. You know, Game Pass is like, boy, check out this sick weapon charm or whatever it is. If you're an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you get all of this drip for one low monthly price. Boy, let's go. You know they're going to lean into that. But that incentivizes people to come over. And if they don't, people are still going to buy it. It's not like if it's multi-platform and Microsoft owns it, you're going to have a lot of, as much as people want to act like Twitter is the reality, you're not going to have people say, Microsoft owns Call of Duty, I'm not buying it anymore. It was my favorite game, but they own it. I'm not buying. No. Those people are going to cave in a second. They always do. So 10 years, incredibly, incredibly generous. So as you touched on, Sony didn't comment, which leads us to believe that they weren't this deal was also inadequate. So Cog, if 10 years isn't enough, what is PlayStation's end game here? What do they want? What would make them happy? Anything?
This was surprising because, you know, I've been on record, and I remember when the information came out, everybody was kind of clowning Jim Ryan, like, these arguments are stupid, and why would he, you know, do this? Because based on PlayStation's past business practices of, you know, exclusive content and luring people into their ecosystem on the principle of exclusive content, a lot of people felt, you know, this is hypocritical for PlayStation to kind of take a stance like this. And I told people, I said, look at the tea leaves. If you look at Jim Ryan's rise through PlayStation, right? Even internally, there was debate, you know, the shift away from Japan into Europe, right? The EU, and the domination of PlayStation in the EU. Like, he's responsible for that era. That's his ascent to power. So in my opinion, one, you can't he basically is going to leverage one, relationships there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Two, he's going to also leverage, a group or governing body of regulators that may not have I'm going to be nice, the full scope of how the games industry works. So if you can fearmonger a little bit on a group of people who are not educated in a specific subject,
Oh,
bro, it's his job. No, I'm not even going to hate. As a shareholder, that's his job to protect the shareholders for someone. Like, he's going to do what he has to do. And the way I look at it, the way he looks at it probably is like, look, they're getting a 30% revenue currently right now for Call of Duty just existing on the platform. They're not doing any work. Call of Duty is out on our platform. We collect money.
yep.
Right? This deal by Microsoft and Activision Blizzard threatens that. If you just look at the business, forget fair, we understand the hypocrisy, we understand. But if you put on your corporate hat for a second, that's what they're looking at. Our money, we must block this thing at all costs. So when you hear in 10 years being removed, and that's unacceptable, they're going scorched earth. This is a risky play. This could backfire in their face, no doubt. But to them, I guess the position to them is like, it's worth destroying it so we can maintain the status quo. That's what this is about, in my opinion, because it doesn't make any person with common sense would say, okay, when you buy something, you own it. You get to do what you choose, what you please. Two, you, Sony, are the market leader, right? The spirit of competition means someone in 2 and 3 trying to improve themselves to get to your level is the spirit of competition. So you basically are making statements. It's going to harm gamers. No, it's going to harm your gamers. So your PlayStation gamers don't represent all of gamers, kind of thing. And I think that's what's going on here. And look, there's a ton of hypocrisy here, right? I'm not going to get into all the semantics. And even on both sides, Microsoft's been a little, Call of Duty is not that big. And, I get it. We doing the game. Everyone's playing the corporate game to regulators. But at the end of the day, to the question, the 10 years, why they're not accepting it. This is a scorched earth approach. They're trying to block this deal at all costs, Miles. And if they got a little hope to plant a little seed of doubt in regulators, they're going to take it. They're taking their shot. That's what this is.
You bring up a lot of things that I've touched on previously, but I kind of want to revisit here because you talk about the Call of Duty machine. PlayStation right now, as it stands, they know Call of Duty has weight because they've leveraged so much marketing money, so much exclusive content, and they've built, this platform identity around Call of Duty. As much as they shout about their first parties, as much as they shout about God of War, Uncharted, all of those amazing franchises they have, they know Call of Duty from a financial standpoint is way more beneficial. Again, not to downplay first party, but the reality is a lot of these platforms probably make a bulk of their money on third-party sales versus first-party sales. Because like you said, somebody else is already developing it. All I have to do is host this and put it on my server and I get money. And when a game like Call of Duty makes $1 billion in 3 days, you're getting a chunk of that money for not doing a whole lot. And so that's a sweet place to be, baby. And when you're PlayStation and when you've spent millions and millions and millions of marketing dollars on Call of Duty, because they have dumped a lot of money into making sure that Call of Duty has brand synergy with the PlayStation platform. And when that's threatened, when your gold pot is threatened, baby, you got to step into the Thunderdome. You got to call these regulators. You got to get in your car and you got to say, no, hold on. Now this ain't good.
The UAV is online.
This is not. Listen to me, man. It's not good. It's bad think of the gamers. Don't you understand what this... And the reality is, not to throw shade at the regulators, they have to catch up on a lot. There hasn't been a deal like this. They haven't had to go into the nitty-gritty details of what a gaming subscription service means and how all these platforms operate and what this actually means for the future of gaming. But then you have, a veteran, a veteran like Jim Ryan coming in saying, listen, this is why it's bad. All right, let me give you some bullet points here of why this will threaten competition, will threaten the industry. Look at Microsoft's bad. They had a monopoly in the past. Remember that? Remember their monopoly in the past? They're going to do it again. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. All right? Stop this in its tracks right now if you love gamers. And that's how he's trying to leverage it. And again, That is a risky play. That's a bold move to turn down a deal, a 10-year deal,
yeah.
and try to swing it into this thing that could potentially go to court. And then if it goes to court and things don't work in your favor, Microsoft is not going to extend that deal. If they don't have to, if it goes to court and things go a different way, Microsoft, like, all right, that sweet 3-year, 10-year deal, that's done. We're going to do whatever we want with this. And now legally, we have the legal grounds to do so. I still, regardless of how that all plays out, I don't think it's going to be exclusive right away or in any short period of time. And I think the bulk, the Warzone, the main multiplayer components, I don't think those will ever be exclusive. But I think PlayStation is worried about what that means for their bottom line, because we've heard them talk about games being expensive. It's expensive to develop games. That's why we're seeing them branch out to games as a service. They want that recurring revenue. That's why they scooped up Bungie and said, please help us build this out. We know you got the Destiny machine. The Destiny machine makes a lot of money. People engage with it. They buy content constantly. We don't have to spend 4 or 5 years and wait for that one big pop and hope to God that we get a return on that investment. Just pray, please sell 10 million copies. Oh my God, if this doesn't sell 10 million copies, we're doomed. And that's kind of the reality of huge budget AAA games. You spend 5 years and hundreds of millions of dollars, that thing needs to hit. That thing needs to hit hard, and it needs to sell really, really well. And I think if they lose Call of Duty was kind of their buffer while they figured that out. Call of Duty was that thing where they were getting a consistent revenue stream for doing nothing. And if that is threatened and if that's taken away immediately, that's going to affect their bottom line, and that's going to impact their first-party output. I think that's my tinfoil hat theory, is that they are legitimately concerned about how that's going to impact their first party, because they've banged that first party drum hard. All of their fans, they talk, we're the best in the bid. And if you look at critical reception, if you look at sales, like, you could argue that. I mean, we'll get into this later, but Nintendo, first party sale wise, cannot be touched at all.
Exactly.
Cannot be touched.
Does not have Call of Duty on their platform, which completely flies in the face of Sony. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So we'll dive don't worry, we'll get into all of that. But they're banging that first party drum hard. And if there comes a point where their first party is financially impacted and they can't invest in that and they lose having the best first party, what do they got, baby? Not to be, inflammatory, not to downplay PlayStation platform, but that's been their selling point. Is we have the best must-play first-party games, and if they lose that, then what's the selling point?
Well, yeah, it's an over. They create these quality experiences, right? Like you said, we're not trying to be inflammatory. They really create these quality games. So to me, the spirit of competition, if they were to lose Call of Duty's marketing rights, so to speak, and it goes on Xbox, means that you just purchased Bungie for the purpose of creating these live service games, like you said. So to me, I want to see a Sony, get creative in the multiplayer space. They've created these amazing games like SOCOM and Resistance and Kills. Like, they've shown it, but lately they have no desire to. So it'd be interesting to see a world, if it did go through, how creative they could get in that space. That's just what I wanted to add there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where I'm a big multiplayer guy in general. So I know people love the single player narrative of PlayStation. I think that's fantastic. They've obviously done a great job, built up an audience around that, but I would love to see them branch out with some of these IP and experiment with multiplayer stuff. And if that gives them a better revenue stream and a more consistent revenue stream, that's a win-win. Because the reality is, as much as people complain about certain games as a service titles and monetization practices, those games are what's going to keep the lights on as we move forward with AAA gaming. If you want those big God of War Ragnarok type experiences, there has to be money coming in the interim to fund them. As big as PlayStation is, as big as Microsoft are, they don't really have unlimited, infinite amounts of money to just get no return on 5 years of development. And that's why you see publishers like Square Enix and Konami and all of these other companies talk about the risks. And sure, I'm tired of a lot of big companies coming out and trying to make us feel bad for maybe making slightly less money. Oh my God, no, this multi-billion-dollar company is going to make less money. Woe is me. Like, I don't really feel bad. But that being said, there is truth to what they're saying. And there are teams at risk. And again, when you are working behind the scenes and you're talking with these folks about, like, this game has to hit or our studio doesn't exist anymore. We don't have the money to make what comes next. So when we talk about this 10-year deal, my ultimate what I think PlayStation is ultimately aiming for here, it's not necessarily that they're trying to get the deal blocked entirely.
What you think?
What I think, what I think,
Let's go.
and
Let's
this is
go,
gonna
Miles. Where
make
you at?
people, this is gonna make people mad, and
Ooh, let's
people are
go.
not gonna.
Let's
I
take it there.
think PlayStation wants a concession that says you can't put Call of Duty exclusively in Game Pass. You can put it if
I
you
got
put it in
thoughts.
PlayStation Plus. That's fine, but you cannot exclusively put Call of Duty in game. I think that is the level of concessions that Call of Duty is looking for, or PlayStation's looking for with Call of Duty.
I'll jump in. I think that
Oh,
look,
oh,
it's a good theory. It's a good theory. I mean, my theory was the more extreme, right? They don't want it at all, right? But to your point, I think you have a strong point in the sense that let's be real, right? If we're being completely objective, if the deal goes through, right, and Xbox does what they say, they keep it on PlayStation, Call of Duty on PlayStation platforms, right? It's still going to be $70 over there, right?
Mhm.
And then you have this amazing service, right, of Game Pass, right? Game Pass Ultimate, but you say over here, you can get it if essentially for free, even though you're paying for a subscription service. That is tremendous. To Sony's point, that devalues their $70. Now, the question is, will that create a mass exodus? We don't know that, right? But to your point, right? I think that is their main concern. That's why they're so gung ho. They understand that Game Pass is a major weapon in this, and I think that would help them nullify that if they can get a concession to say, hey, CMA, hey, if they get it, then they have to put it in our, we get the ability to put it in our service too. I don't know how that flies legally because they don't own it. And I don't know why regulators would concede to something like that. And I know Microsoft would definitely not concede to that. And they would fight that tooth and nail because they basically pioneered this space, so to speak, right? They're really going extra hard in this space. So look, I think you're on to something. I think that is the crux of this. The crutch of it is they understand the power of Game Pass and what Call of Duty in Game Pass would do, even if it's allowed, even if it's allowed, or even if Call of Duty is allowed just to exist on a PlayStation platform, but without a subscription service, it devalues it. There's no question. I give you that.
Because they've been swinging it behind the
Mhm.
scenes, or not even behind the scenes. They've been publicly swinging Game Pass to say that, we can't get games of our quality with a subscription service like Game Pass. Well, what happens when Xbox starts doing it? What
Mm.
happens when Xbox gets to that point where their games are standing toe to toe, just unarguably with we can fight all day about, I like the Sea of Thieves. I've talked about that being one of the most important IP of the last
Mhm.
decade. But people would downplay, it's got a 69 Metacritic though. And so what happens when Xbox gets to a point where their titles are just legitimately standing toe to toe with God of War Ragnarok in the game of the year conversation? And
Mhm.
that's day one in Xbox Game Pass. And then you couple in the Call of Duty on Xbox Game Pass. Again,
Oh.
we talk about it like, yeah, if you're playing on the Xbox platform, you're gonna play Call of Duty via Game Pass because, like
Mhm.
you said, $70 is $70, y'all. We're
Yes.
coming up on tough times. Money's
Mhm.
tight. $70 it's a lot to ask, and when you can build a platform around that valued proposition,
Oh.
you will have people who say, like, I love Call of Duty. I
Mhm.
can play Call of Duty every single year, plus any other game that Microsoft puts out in Game Pass. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal. I'm going to do that. So I think as much as PlayStation has publicly downplayed the service, I think they understand what the long-term potential of it can be. And once it hits
Absolutely.
its stride in a big mainstream way, man, that's going to be hard to stop. And that's going to be hard to
Absolutely.
compete with. So I do think if you're PlayStation, there are legitimate concerns about competing with Xbox Game Pass. But
Yeah, I mean, and the final thing I would say is that, I think that it's all valid points. I definitely want to reemphasize that they are the market leader, right? They
yes,
are currently the
number
market
one,
leader.
baby.
Number one. And currently, we have to reemphasize that, let's be honest, like their practices and their model has been based on exclusive content and locking a person out of an ecosystem to make their ecosystem more attractive.
Yeah.
So, on pure principle level, I can't buy into this woe is us. We cannot survive at all. We cannot exist. There is nothing that we can do as the market leader to like. I'm not buying
Help
that. To me,
us.
is hyperbolic to me. That's hyperbole to me. I get it. You trying to do what you corporations go corporate. Respect. I know what's going
Salute.
on.
Salute to
Right.
the bottom
So
line, baby.
exactly. So I get it. But at the end of the day, right? The key here is going to be the concessions. To me, this is always what this is about. What are the concessions that need to happen to make regulators comfortable? And that's what we're going to find out. But I think you're on to something. I think the key concession that if Sony could fight for, if this still goes through, it's like, well, you got to make it, you got to put it on PlayStation Plus as well. You know what I'm saying? Which would be a crazy thing to happen, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? That'd be crazy if they're able to get that. But we're gonna see how this plays out. But I think Microsoft is prepared to take this wherever it's gonna go and provide, the information that they need to provide to regulators. But we got to see how this plays out. I will say that last point. This deal, the scope of this deal, I'm not getting all crazy with the blocking part because to me, the news that came out this week, and I don't know if we're gonna get into that.
Oh, we gonna get into that.
Okay, so I'll leave that. So I'll let you go. I got more stuff to say. We got.
Oh yeah, the next huge bulk of this show is going to be
Go for it.
all of that drama. So again, appreciate everyone tuning in. If you are digging the show, if you're having a good time, hit that like button, share it out. If you're new to the channel, welcome. This is youtube.com/Miles Dompier, hot and fresh, about 2 weeks in so far. So appreciate everyone coming along for this ride. Again, I've dropped a link in the show as we work to get super chats. I know super chats were a big part of Xbox Chaturdays. Love that community interaction, so I wanted to have something in the interim. So if you do have a comment or question you want to share with everyone, use the link I dropped in the chat or go to streamlabs.com/milesdompier/tip. I got a couple I'm going to dive into here. We got one from Wet Farts 69. shout out to that epic ass handle. I'm really digging this format. Love your personality. I love you, Miles, son. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Wet Farts 69.
salute to him.
We got another one from Assassin who says, hello to Miles and Lord Cognito. Yes, yesterday, Jez Beanius Mayanus Shrimpolonius Corden speculated on Xbox 2 that Xbox may not be at the Game Awards due to ABK. For the same reason, Sony hasn't done a showcase. What are your thoughts? True or false? Cog, yeah. So I was listening to Xbox 2, and as Assassin touched on, Game Awards right around the corner. And we know the last few years, Xbox has leaned heavily into the Game Awards and Jeff's show, and they've dropped some big stuff. From Hellblade gameplay to Perfect Dark, Xbox has shown up at the Game Awards. But with all of this drama about who has the better exclusives, who has more exclusives, oh, we don't have any exclusives. Do you think that's a factor in Microsoft not showing up that big at the Game Awards this year?
I kind of struggle with this, and I hate going against the legendary Xbox 2. Those are my people. Shout out to Randall. Shout out to the legendary Jez Corden. Look, I understand on one aspect, the block is hot. The feds are watching. Got to be careful. Everyone put the money away. I get it. But to me, that would apply to deals, right? And you don't want to rock the boat on, hey, I'm going to give a Sobo a certain affinity a contract right now. Like that to me is what that is. I would be surprised if they didn't have any presence, to be honest. Usually, even if it's just to show something that we've already known that they're working on, right? Would be cool. But I would be shocked because unless they came out and said the acquisition, which you don't normally see at a Game Award show. So we'll see. But look, I'll never go against those guys. You know what I'm saying? If they feel the block's hot, Microsoft doesn't want to do anything, and Sony feels the block's hot, they don't want to do anything. Maybe that's just the mindset. Maybe that's just the climate while they both engage in wars. But I would struggle because Jeff's platform allows you to showcase new project, right? That's really what it is. It's a game announcement. It's a trailer. It's a marketing thing. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, again, I know you won't push back against Jez and Rand, but I'll push back every damn day, all right?
Okay.
I can't believe that Microsoft, at Microsoft Theater in LA, would be like, all right, well, sorry, I guess we're not going to show anything. That's fine. We just came off 2022 where everyone complained that we had no games, but we're not going to show anything because of regular. No, I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're going to go that hard. I don't think they're going to have 10 things to show, but I have a hard time believing we're not going to get 1 or 2 really big pops from Microsoft. Because like you said, some of the stuff we already know is coming out. Some of this stuff we already know is going to be exclusive. So why not show it? Exactly. Why try to pretend like that information isn't already out? Like, so you can't turn back time. We already know some of these games are exclusive, so it is what it is. So I have a hard time believing because of this deal they wouldn't show anything. Because as much as this deal is important, and we've had the speculation that PlayStation's held back shows, well, PlayStation's trying to say that it's not fair for Microsoft to have exclusives when they constantly have exclusives, and they are leaning into Konami and their partners to host shows for them and say, all right, put Silent Hill in there so we don't get the heat. All right, dog, we can't. I can't be packing this. You got to present this to the world and spin it and say, because of our long relationship and Silent Hill started on PlayStation, so that's 1 year exclusive. that's why we're doing it. It's perfectly natural. It has nothing to do with money. It's just a natural thing. And then you had that weird spiel during the Konami Silent Hill showcase, which is like, come on, dude. I understand, but it's just weird. We all get it. We all get it. Just say you got a big bag, all right? Say, sorry, they gave us X amount of dollars. It's going to take a year, okay? Just say that. I would respect you way more than you trying to swing it as something else, all right? Just give me the hard facts. Tell me, hey, sorry, Xbox fans, you'll get it in a year. Microsoft didn't pony up the bag. All right.
Yeah, look, the bag was dropped. Listen, I'm all about everybody getting their bag, so it is what it is. But yeah, me and you know what's going on.
We know what's going on. So yeah, I think Microsoft will be there with at least one big thing. I'm hoping a few. Redfall release date? Come on, we know it's coming Q1.
That's a good one.
Hit us with the Redfall release date. Hit us with a new Starfield trailer. Come on, just sprinkle a little something, something. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially after 2022. You got to reinvigorate the base. I'm with you.
Xbox fans are hurting, all right? If you've been on social media, if you've been on any if you've been in any Xbox chat, 2022 wasn't a stellar year for Xbox first party, and a lot of people are losing their patience. So you can't just be like, well, the deal's gonna...
the deal.
All right, so we just talked about Call of Duty and PlayStation exclusivity, but we're going to talk a little bit more about Call of Duty and exclusivity in regards to Sony, because as part of these ongoing conversations, as part of the investigations regarding what's happening behind the scenes with PlayStation and Xbox, a lot of these companies have been coming out and saying some wild things about what this deal could mean for them, what this deal will mean for the entire industry. And it's been funny to have PlayStation come out and say, basically, that nothing can compete with Call of Duty. Call of Duty is an entity, a being all of its own. Nothing, no one, nobody can touch it. There's nothing we could do. There's no possible way we could compete. And there's no possible way anyone can compete, is what they're saying. There's no shooter in the 18-plus space that can exist that would stand toe-to-toe with Call of Duty. So I want to read a couple comments because basically they're coming out at the expense of companies like EA and at the expense of developers like Bungie, who I know you love Bungie. I know you love Bungie. We can't forget that PlayStation owns Bungie. Bungie created arguably the biggest Xbox franchise by a lot, and a game that was the launches of Halo 3 in particular, you could argue were the biggest, some of the biggest of all time. So with all of that in mind, here are some responses from PlayStation to the UK.
Let's go.
Quote, Call of Duty is not replicable. Call of Duty is too entrenched for any rival, no matter how well equipped, to catch up. It has been the top-selling game for almost every year in the last decade, and in the first-person shooter genre, it is overwhelmingly the top-selling game. Other publishers do not have the resources or expertise to match its success. To give a concrete example, Electronic Arts, one of the largest third-party developers after Activision, has tried for many years to produce a rival to Call of Duty with its Battlefield series. Despite the similarities between Call of Duty and Battlefield, and despite EA's track record in developing other successful AAA franchises, such as FIFA, Mass Effect, Need for Speed, and Star Wars Battlefront, the Battlefield franchise cannot keep up. As of August 2021, more than 400 million Call of Duty games has been sold, while Battlefield has sold just 88.7 million. So Sony's out here kicking Battlefield when it's down. All right, we know the launch of Battlefield 2042 wasn't stellar. People were not happy with it. It was not of high quality. It was buggy. It had a bunch of other fundamental problems. But man, PlayStation is coming out and saying that EA, they've done some good stuff, but Battlefield ain't it. Battlefield has only sold almost 100 million games. What a joke! What a joke! And they're just really trying to downplay that. So, do you think Sony is really trying to claim that titles like Destiny and Battlefield have no chance in the world of competing with Call of Duty?
Yeah, this is the hyperbolic stuff again, and I get it. Corporations gonna incorporate. Look, am I gonna minimize that Call of Duty is not one of the biggest FPS? Absolutely not. We understand the impact. We understand, but to say that there is nothing no one can do to compete in the history of game, there's nothing anyone else could do. I'm not buying it. I've been around. I'm an older gamer. I've been around. This thing is it goes through generational peaks, and what was once on top does not always remain on top, or wanes, or a new contender comes in. We talked about Fortnite. Who would have thought Fortnite would have come in and absolutely transformed the industry to the way it has? Forced crossplay. Sony themselves, to include forced crossplay, which we did find out that they charge a fee to make that happen. If we're going to be real about the situation, so I'm not buying that. And then the other thing is, let's just take them at face value. Let's just say there is nothing no one else can do. There's nothing they can do. To me, that's a flaw in your own logic, because that means your reliance on a third-party game to exist, your whole existence is for this third-party game to remain on your platform so that you can function, that you can breathe. What were you doing prior? You know what I'm saying? Like if your whole business model relies on that, that means you're clearly not set up properly. So I'm not buying it. Again, it's one of those things that the regulators may not have enough information, and it's maybe a situation that Sony is like, hey, we're going to stress the importance of this. We're going to stress how big this is so that we can get to our end game, which is this deal must be blocked, or like you said, put on what you call it. And I honestly, and last point I say, not to be fanboyish, this is getting into territory where, let's be honest, by slandering Battlefield and saying that there's nothing else no one else can do, and all, you are literally disrespecting the company you just acquired in Bungie. Basically saying there's nothing you can do. That over there, that's it. But we just bought you, you can't do anything, right? Oh, EA, who we partner with, that we have on the platform. Oh yeah, you're a failure. You can't. You're Battlefield. Don't talk about Apex Legends. Don't talk about Fortnite. Don't talk about all these other big games that came out and has been extremely successful. But you see. So again, it's just this self-serving. We get it. Like you're trying to incorporate and put the seed of doubt in, and it's just bad faith arguments. But I get it. You're scorching the earth. Everything to stop this deal.
That's what I love about this legal drama. All the hyperbole and all of these big mega corporations trying to make this deal seem like the end all be all, or on the other side of the coin, making it seem like, it's not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
No, it's fine. It's not a big deal at all. We are cool. Trust me, bro. We are hella cool. You've seen how cool we are. Game Pass is sick. All right. There's nothing to question here. Let's all just move on with our lives. So it's hilarious. And again, they're ignoring, like you said, big examples like Apex, which is blown up, Fortnite, which is, is Call of Duty not bigger than Fortnite? Come on now.
Yeah, it's very selective, the choices that are being utilized. It's all strategic. Sorry.
I was gonna say, even Elden Ring. Elden Ring came out of nowhere, and to be this weird, obscure, hyper difficult niche RPG, and that did Call of Duty numbers this year. So they can't pretend like nothing has any possibility of coming in, shaking up the industry. And that's essentially what they're saying. That's essentially what they're trying to say, and that's why they are leveraging things like, oh, it can't be exclusive, or it can't be on Game Pass, blah, 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 because it is a big deal. It definitely is a big deal. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but nobody should be really downplaying how big of a deal it is either. We do have some interesting comments regarding all of that. But first, got to give a huge shout out to everyone tuning in, hanging out, having fun. Appreciate you. Yes. I talked about this at the beginning of the show if you missed it, but I am thankful, greatly thankful for everyone who's tuned in, drop some nice words, drop some comments on the new channel. And again, excited to be able to keep Xbox Chaturdays, move it over here because the show is fun. This chat, this community, this audience is amazing. We always have great conversations on the show, in the chat, so appreciate all of you.
Hit the subscribe button.
Hit the subscribe button if you're new. Yeah. All right, we got
you bought. Hit the subscribe button.
Those are for free, yo. All right, normally charge. All right, Assassin has tipped $3. Says we can't let Mike. Oh, this is a Sony executive quote. Again, quote air quotes. Sony executive. We can't let Microsoft buy Activision. What should we say, Jim? Jim Ryan. Well, we have these amazing partners making great games. Let's just trash their products and ruin those partnerships to get our point across. High five. Fantastic.
Truth to that, right? It's the scorched earth policy has negative effects on relationships. Like, depending on how this plays out, you got to be careful. I mean, but I understand the end game is the end game. Block the deal.
The end, exactly. You know, you have a goal in mind. Get it done, no matter again. As much as, you know, capitalism is a thing that we have bought into, that bottom line is the driving force. All right. Actually. A lot of things get diminished, downplayed, and straight up eliminated in favor of the bottom line. So when it comes to professional relationships, when it comes to, you know, the morale of your own teams, you know, I guess that's a small price to pay to make sure that Call of Duty doesn't go in Game Pass, right? Bungie, nice try. You guys are cute. You did the Destiny thing. That was cute. Halo, that was cute. But you haven't done a Call of Duty, and you better do a Call of Duty. And that's, I don't know if that's what they're hoping for or what the angle there was to trying to downplay that. But yeah, they literally just bought Bungie, who made Halo, who was arguably one of the biggest shooters. As much as Halo Infinite's got memed on, at one point in time, Halo was a juggernaut, a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and to your point, it's like I know a lot of people don't like Destiny, but the reality is it's one of the most successful console looter shooters, you know, period. And the engagement for a game that's over like 10 plus years is tremendous. So this is something that they now have control over. It's going to be, you know, obviously it's going to be multi-plat, but the reality is this is the same studio that can create that. And you just made a purchase, you know, to secure that as far as live service games and stuff like that. So again, very interesting to me to make comments that there's nothing that no one else could do in the history of gaming to compete.
Our fate is sealed, Cog.
That's it. It's over. We can't. That's it. Stop. We got to stop. We got to close down shop. If this deal happens, we have to close down shop. There's nothing we can do. That the industry is finished.
If this deal happens, you will have blood on your hands. You will have killed PlayStation. Okay, is that what you want?
Clearly.
All right, now my favorite part of the show. We get to talk about Nintendo. Woo! People love when I talk about Nintendo on the Xbox podcast, but I promise it's in relation to all of this. It's in relation to PlayStation. It's in relationship to Xbox and this deal. So, as you know, a bulk of this episode is talking about the ongoing acquisition. We've gotten a lot of hilarious comments from both sides about what this deal means, why everyone should be worried, blah, blah, blah. We've gotten some hilarious comments from PlayStation, and we've gotten some hilarious comments from Xbox as well. One particularly hilarious comment is about Microsoft's, quote, true strategy. Microsoft's evil master plan behind the scenes when it comes to taking Call of Duty away. You know what this deal's really about, Cog?
Damn, bring that. What's it about?
This deal's about turning PlayStation into Nintendo. Oh, the slant. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine a nightmare scenario where PlayStation is forced to only sell 40 million copies of their first-party games? Can you imagine that? What
How could you survive?
Dude, what a tragedy. What an
That's
absolute
awful.
tragedy to become
Mm,
Nintendo, a wildly profitable, wildly successful company who has one
mm,
of the longest and most cherished hi- uh, histories in the industry. Yeah. Oh
mm.
wow. What a place to be. So
Very interesting.
again, this is all at these comments. We know they're wild, but again, it's the legal, the technicality, baby. That's where legality shines. The
Mhm.
technicalities. So here
Let's
are some comments
let's get it.
regarding PlayStation's concerns that they will become Nintendo post this
Mm,
acquisition.
let's go.
Quote, Microsoft claims that Nintendo's differentiated model demonstrates that PlayStation doesn't need Call of Duty to compete effectively. But this reveals Microsoft's true strategy. Microsoft wants PlayStation to become like Nintendo so that it would be a less close and effective competitor to Xbox.
Mm.
So, how are you feeling about these arguments? How does
It's
that statement to me? I was dying because it's so unbelievable. But
yeah, this is like I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, but the reason why this one is just so out of pocket is because like we just came from the Brazilian regulator stuff, right? You know, and the regulators literally Brazil literally just said, you know, the argument that that Call of Duty is the end all be all does not hold weight. And they literally used Nintendo as an example. You know, Nintendo has been thriving without Call of Duty on their platform in any format. And I think the what's interesting is, them trying to categorize Nintendo as something completely different. Like this is, oh no, you do games stuff, but you're in this pocket and you're kitty and you're different. So we don't count you. Again, all of this stuff to serve a selfish motive, and it's just got to be honest. Again, this is the hyperbolic talk again, and I understand what you're trying to do, but it's just not legitimate. We just got to call it out for what it is. And the reality is Nintendo is extremely flourishing. Since the Nintendo Switch came out, let's be honest, and a lot of PlayStation fanboys and Xbox fanboys don't want to hear this, but Nintendo's been dominating. MPDs, sales. It's just recently now that PlayStation 5 is kind of getting their stock up and stuff like that. You're starting to see PS5 kind of win MPDs and stuff like that. But the reality is the Switch has been dominant. And like you said, Miles, their first party games are insane. All of this without Call of Duty. So that their success flies directly in the face of these claims that Sony's making. And I think that's the thing that's quite interesting to me, that they are trying to pose these arguments, in their defense. But we'll see what happens, man. But this one is really, I gotta be like, this was really egregious. Like, this is egregious. Like, bro, like, you really gonna use this as to make us like as if being Nintendo is an awful thing? Like that is wow. But I'll let you go. This one
yeah,
was surprising
I
that they
mean,
brought this.
I'm sure they have fantastic lawyers. I'm not a
Yes,
lawyer. I'm not a
yes,
legal expert.
absolutely.
But this line makes me say, "Dog, really? That's what your lawyer's coming to the table with as a defense here? Like
Yeah.
that's the line. That's the line you guys agreed on. Is that you're a platform that has your main selling point to a lot of people are your first party exclusives, and You're comparing negatively the platform that has the best selling first party exclusives by an enormous margin. That is the negative. I'm sorry, PlayStation would love to be in Nintendo's position. I don't care. We just had God of War Ragnarok drop. That was the best selling first party PlayStation game ever. Biggest launch. First week it sold 5.1 million copies.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which
Talk
if
to
you've
him.
been on Twitter, negative
Mm-hmm.
PR, negative. No, the game looks terrible. The game runs terrible. Blah
Hmm.
blah blah. 10 million copies in 3 days.
Exactly what the
The
numbers say, right?
the
Mm-hmm.
biggest exclusive launch ever, ever,
Mm,
ever.
first party
And
exclusive.
that's and you're going to swing that as a negative. You're going to swing 50 million copies of Mario Kart. You're going to swing 40 million copies of Animal Crossing. They have most of their first party exclusives have sold a magnitude of 4 to 10 times more. We had Amit in the chat says Nintendo shooter Splatoon sold more than
Oh,
90% of
huge,
Sony's first party games. Come
huge.
on, dude. Like if you
Yeah.
want exclusives to be a selling point of your platform, then don't use Nintendo as the detrimental example of not being able to compete, because I think we've had Phil Spencer make public comments about how much he praises Nintendo, and I'm sure,
Right.
especially after Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's massive launch, we know the budget of Pokemon or of Nintendo titles is way less than God of War Ragnarok. So 10 million copies of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet compared to 5 million copies of Ragnarok, we know for a fact Nintendo made way, 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 way more money than PlayStation made on God of War Ragnarok. And so it's an interesting example. It's a funny example. And again, like the running theme of this is both companies are going to say anything that they need to get the deal done, because we all want it done. We're all a little sick and tired of talking about it, but God, these comments, they're too good not to discuss. The Nintendo one in particular.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's funny. And like you said, if anybody should be kind of speaking up, it's Nintendo, so to speak, right? If anyone could say, hey, I mean, we maybe we should fear that it could get blocked. It could harm our game, that kind of thing, because we don't get it. Maybe it's Nintendo, but you see they've been absent from this. And you see Microsoft employer strategy where they go, hey, remember when the deal was announced, I thought was quite interesting. I believe the gentleman's name was Brad Smith. And he came out with a statement and said, look, not only do we intend to keep it on other platforms, we want to extend it further to more platforms. We want to get it on Nintendo. So Nintendo came up, right? So it's interesting to who's speaking, right? The other platform owners, the other publishers, and who's saying that it's going to harm people, and the actual other people that it could harm not speaking. that to me is quite interesting.
Yeah, this whole situation, it's just funny. It's just, again, Nintendo's just sitting on the sidelines, probably laughing to themselves, watching this drama unfold, because we're not hearing public comments from Nintendo. They're not getting involved. They're not objecting to the deal. They're just kicking back, doing their thing. Whether you like Nintendo or not, they are just sitting back and pumping out games. Their first party lineup for 2022, while we've kind of clowned on Xboxes a little bit, and even PlayStation's, started strong and ended strong. There was a long period of time where there was nothing. Nintendo's just been dumping out games and keeping people happy. So it's just funny that PlayStation, of all people, with their focus on exclusives, is trying to make Nintendo's business model, or it's trying to say Nintendo's business model doesn't compete because they don't have Call of Duty. All right, that's what there's. If you don't have Call of Duty, you can't even exist in this industry. Hog.
Pack it up.
On the other side of the coin, Xbox has been talking about what this deal means and what Call of Duty means. And we've gotten some hilarious comments from Xbox as well about why we shouldn't really be that concerned, okay? So on one side, we have PlayStation saying, oh my God, you can't do anything. Nobody can compete with Call of Duty. It's the end-all, be-all. And then on the other side, you have Xbox saying, you know what? Call of Duty isn't a big deal. People don't even really like Call of Duty that much. Call of Duty isn't even that cool, dude. People don't care. Have you been on Twitter polls? People don't like Call of Duty. What are you talking about? So they came out. I'm not going to read it verbatim because it's very legally. But basically, they came out and said that Microsoft claimed that user polls for Game of the Year, Metacritic averages of the last Call of Duty games, and industry reviews being lower means that Call of Duty isn't a big deal. Those are the examples that they're not the fact that it made $1 billion in 3 days. No, that's boring. What you really need to know about is that PlayStation hosted a users poll and asked their fans what the Game of the Year was, and nobody voted for Call of Duty. Come on, man. So how important is this? How important do you think Call of Duty is to this deal? We know Xbox is trying to downplay it, but let's be real here. How important do you think Call of Duty is to this overall deal?
It's very important. Microsoft can attempt to downplay it. You know what I mean? We know they're bumping the mobile aspect, which is true. I mean, they want a foothold in mobile, and the King aspect is going to be huge, right? But the reality is, we're not going to minimize what Call of Duty is now just because of some selective polls we've chosen to use our evidence. And that part, I got to call Microsoft out on. Like, come on, fam. We know Call of Duty's huge, bro. Don't do that. Don't do that. And look, I get it. Corporation's going to cooperate. You're going to try to make yourself look the best. You're going to make yourself the shining knight in the situation. You've come to save the day, and your intentions are pure. And this is not a big deal. I get it. That's their thing on that. But no, make no mistake. Call of Duty. The reason why we're going into potentially a second round of investigations is because. He said Call of Duty is just a niche indie title. You know what I'm saying? The reason why we're going into a second round is because of the scope. That's what this is. The principles are the same with exclusives, but the reason why we're here is the scope of this game is huge, and that's why they want the second look. But Microsoft, come on, we know that part right there.
Come exactly. Again, we've had a lot of statements from Microsoft downplaying Call of Duty and saying, that's not actually the big deal. Again, I think King is a big portion of it. It sounds like behind the scenes, they're working to have a mobile platform. They want to have a mobile storefront to be able to compete. And if you get King, you get Candy Crush, you get Call of Duty Mobile, you have an enticing reason. Much like if Epic did not have Fortnite, I don't think the Epic Game Store would have had the jump start that it had.
Absolutely.
You're leveraging really established things to build a storefront. And so I think Microsoft needs this deal to be able to launch its storefront, and then they can start, dictating their own terms, get their piece of the pie. Because look, there's a reason Valve hasn't made games or hasn't had a huge incentive to make games. They have Steam, baby. They just kick back and they get that 30% cut. Why on earth would you make a video game? That's risky. There's zero risk in putting a game on your store, and if it sells, you make money. Come on. So
yeah.
Microsoft wants that in the mobile scene because they know, as they've touched about the billions of gamers around the world, and that's a noble goal, and a lot of them are playing on mobile, but there's a lot of money to be made on mobile. And when you can sit back, you can launch a storefront, you can put Call of Duty, which again, they try to downplay Call of Duty. Call of Duty Mobile is massive. Call of Duty Mobile makes so much money, and there would be a huge number of people who would use the Microsoft storefront to play that, especially if they're forced to. They're not going to just skip it because, much like a PC launcher, you can get it on any phone. So Microsoft is just trying to set that groundwork. But that being said, Call of Duty is a huge deal, and they want Call of Duty on Game Pass because of all the reasons we talk about. For us as players in the space, the reason this deal is exciting for us is because we can play these games on Game Pass. Damn, Diablo 4. Oh, damn, Call of Duty. Oh, damn, any Crash Bandicoot, any Tony Hawk, any whatever game, other franchises they decide to bring back. I can play that on Game Pass? Come on. That's why I'm excited about this deal.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about what this deal means, obviously, for the people behind the scenes working there, because we know Activision hasn't been the gold standard for employment. We know that. We definitely know that. So things need to change. Hopefully things do change, and that's what we can look towards as the positives of this deal. But yeah, it's really funny to me that one company's trying to make Call of Duty seem like the biggest thing on the planet, and the other company's trying to say, you know what? Nah, it's not that big of a deal. You'll be just fine. And the reality, as usual, is somewhere in the middle. Call of Duty is a huge deal. Absolutely. It's not fair or even accurate to downplay Call of Duty at all. Even though there was the memes last year with Vanguard that, oh man, is Call of Duty dead? This game didn't sell.
Even on a bad year.
This game didn't sell infinite copies. It didn't smash every record possible. So is Call of Duty dead? And then next year, baby, smashed every single record. So Call of Duty is important. But as we've seen, you can compete. You can compete in the space. You can put out great games. And if you do, people will give you money for it.
Absolutely.
Now, this is where the drama gets especially juicy. And if you're here for the drama, smash that like button, share it out, because we're getting into it. Because there was I think it was the day before Thanksgiving. There was a big development, and Politico put out an article that was titled, quote, FTC is likely to file an antitrust lawsuit to block the Activision acquisition. So that headline in of itself, that's blazing, that's fiery, that's a huge headline. There have been some concerns regarding the contents of the article, claiming it's clickbait, and whether or not the contents of the article accurately portray the headline. So we're going to break it down. We're going to break it all down here, break down whether or not it's warranted, whether or not the headline's fair, and what this potentially means for the deal. Because regardless of whether or not the article title was clickbait, there's some implications here worth discussing. So let me give you a quick overview. So according to 3 people with knowledge on the matter who spoke to Politico, the FTC is likely, and this is a quote from the article. This is a line pulled straight from the article. According to 3 people with knowledge on the matter who spoke to Politico, the FTC is likely to block Microsoft's $69 billion deal. So this would be the biggest move yet under the FTC. And there's a new chairperson, Lena Khan. And Lena Khan's big initiative right now is to rein in big tech, baby. Big tech is bad. Facebook, Microsoft, Meta, all of these companies are, they've gotten too big for their britches, all right? The reality is the government doesn't like the fact that big tech companies have more money and influence than the government. And if you're a government, that's probably understandable. That's a scary place to be when a company that works under the guise of capitalism has more influence than you, has more sway than you. So understandably, the FTC is a little concerned about how big tech is getting. So important things to note from this article. So it starts off saying they're likely to file a deal. Here's what the actual context of the article says. The lawsuit isn't guaranteed, and the 4 FTC commissioners haven't voted out a complaint or met with the lawyers from these companies. So essentially, nothing's official until it's official here, is what they're basically saying there. Nobody's voted, nothing's finalized. That means the outcome of this is very much fluid. Things can change. Things probably will change. But one thing they do say, they talk about how the people who spoke to Politico have said the, quote, heavy lifting regarding the investigation, that's done. They've spoken to Satya Nadella, they've spoken to Bobby Kotick, and now it's going to be down to meeting with the lawyers of these companies to hear what they have to say. And so, this is according to Politico and the people who spoke to them. The essential gist of this article is that people are leaning towards no, and based on the information that they have, they are skeptical of whether or not this deal should go through. That's the vibe. Whether or not the article title is clickbait or not, that is kind of the vibe of the meat of this article here. So, Cog, what is your read on this development? When you see a blistering headline that says the FTC, of all people, is potentially looking to block this deal, what's your take on that?
I think is status quo. I still, after investigating it, and looking at the political article, and I get it. Look, I saw it too, and I'm just like, wow, this potential this thing could really get blocked. And not saying that there isn't, but the reality is there's when you use the verbiage likely, right? And people are looking into it. To me, this is expected on a deal this scale. And when you have a deal this scale, everyone's got to dot their I's and cross their T's and to make sure this thing is legal. Is what's going on here legal, right? Can we do that? Can we do some due diligence there? And we're going to go around and we're going to circle around. So to me, we're still in the same spot, which is this is going to round two. Round two, everyone's going to have to provide the information that the FTC and all these bodies need to feel comfortable about this deal going through. And to me, I've always stayed on this square. This is all about concessions to make a group comfortable, right? And if Microsoft can provide the concessions that they need, then I expect it to go through, right? If not, yes. Is there a chance it could be blocked? Yes, absolutely. No one's saying there's no chance, but I think what has happened this week is people have jumped the gun, but the language, and I'm not saying it's a clickbait article, but if you just read the title, you're like, oh man, this is blocked. This is it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The blocking has happened. You know what I'm saying? That has not happened yet. Right. So let's let it play out. Let's see what's going on. And look, these guys got lawyers and people that pay way above my pay grade to sort this stuff out. Right? Let the process play. But to me, the only thing that remains consistent is that this is going to take still a while to sort out. And we will then see if concessions are made or they go to block. But I think we're still in the same spot.
Yeah, again, we talked about this earlier, but it's all about those technicalities. And it's going to come down to the arguing side that has the better technicality in this situation, because I think fundamentally, there's not a huge concern, I think, as the deal stands independently. If you look at the deal in a vacuum of itself, there's probably not a lot of legal precedent to block it. And I don't think just looking at the deal isolated that there are legal grounds to just block it outright. However, as you touched on, those concessions, those exceptions, those tweaks to what's going on here, those are going to be the things that the FTC might say. The FTC might say this deal cannot go through as it is. Here's how this deal can go through. And again, we don't know that that's the reality. We don't know that it will be blocked. It could still go through without any sort of concessions. If the Microsoft lawyers come in with some compelling, excellent arguments, absolutely knock it out of the park, can they say, there's nothing to worry about, here's why. Here's 50 reasons why you don't need to worry about it. Like, all right, cool. That puts us at ease. We don't really have to worry about this deal. We can all move on. We know a lot of other companies are actively investigating the deal. And let's be real, they should be. This is a huge deal. This is a juggernaut deal. This is the biggest deal in video game history. It shouldn't just breeze through in a matter of weeks. There should be due diligence, and I think that's why Microsoft came out way early and said, all right, we're expecting this maybe June of next year, June 2023. And I think as we see this all play out and we get all the juicy developments and all the drama, it seems like, yeah, we might get close to that June cutoff here for this really to fully wrap up, because people are invested in making sure that this deal isn't going to hurt competition. And again, a lot of these regulators have some catching up to do about the state of the industry, because let's be real, the industry itself is relatively new, and Xbox game streaming, cloud streaming, subscription services, those are incredibly new. Those are Microsoft is still actively marketing what that even means and trying to sell people on that idea. So there is a learning curve for everyone involved here. And again, I think it's in no one's best interest for them to just take anyone at face value, whether it's PlayStation, whether it's Xbox. I really hope these regulators aren't that easily swayed where they just listen to Jim Ryan say, this will destroy us, or Xbox say, it's not a big deal, and say, you know what? Yeah, I trust you.
Exactly. No, that this is all part of what I consider understand work. There's tons of understand work here that has to happen. And that's why the process, I remember when people get a little too pumped up when the Brazilian regulator, when it passed through Brazil, was, oh, next step. This is almost out of here.
We're almost done. Saudi Arabia and Brazil, 2 months. This is going to wrap up before the holidays, and we're getting Call of Duty Day 1 in Game Pass, baby. Let's go.
Dudes just telling me, yo, it's about to get done up by the end of the year next. I'm like, bro. People were telling me that Warfare, remember this one, Modern Warfare 2, it's going to get wrapped up and they're going to get
Day 1 Game Pass.
Day 1 Game Pass. I'm like, bro, that's
what
not
are
how
you
this
talking
works.
about?
Yeah, 67 million. This thing has to be going through with a fine comb on both sides to analyze aspect. And then the last part is the future state, right? There's a future state that a lot of these guys don't understand. Cloud, mobile, all this stuff. It's all going to get broken down. We in this, sadly, for a lot of people that don't like this topic for a while.
And I appreciate everyone who's here having a good time. I try to keep this conversation fun because I've joked about it. We're a lot of us are sick of talking about it. But as you touched on, we got several more months. All right, guys, we strap in. We got more. We have at least 3, probably 5 to 6 more months of Call of Duty Activision acquisition, and hopefully, I pray and hope that in the interim we get some gaming news about actual video games that we can talk about on these shows. But as we wait for, I don't know, maybe Microsoft and PlayStation to be scared to show games because they don't want to have exclusives, we're going to talk about it. All right, we're going to dive into the meat. We're going to have some fun. So following that article, obviously the FTC didn't comment. Politico put this article out. FTC didn't come out and comment. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing at all. But FTC did not outright deny this, and they didn't confirm it in any sort of capacity. Zero from them. But we did get a tweet from Lulu Cheng Messervey, the EVP of Corporate Affairs for Activision Blizzard, and she jumped on Twitter to say this shortly after that article was posted. Quote, seeing a lot of speculation about Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Any suggestion that the transaction could have anti-competitive effects is absurd. This merger will benefit gamers and the US gaming industry, especially as we face stiffer competition from abroad. So she's saying, "Go America, baby. We gotta look out for us. We gotta look out for number ones." All right. So, what's your read on that? Do you think there are any actually? If we look outside of what this means for us and Xbox players and Game Pass, blah blah blah, do you think there's any possibility that there would be a legitimate anti-competitive spin or disruption to this deal going through?
If you look at it from a pure legal standpoint and whether or not the deal is illegal, no, it's not illegal to me. Right. To me, this is the spirit of competition, just on a pure base level. The second or third place person in the space made a purchase. They own a property, they own a bunch of properties. Now it's a matter of how they leverage it, right? And I do get the scope of one of those properties they've earned is huge. They own is huge. Call of Duty is huge. To me, what's being missed, that's why I thought it was interesting that she commented. And granted, this is Activision, there's going to be a slight, there's going to be a lean.
She works for Activision Blizzard.
We got to be clear, right? She's going to lean away. We know that. But I think the point that's being missed, and I don't see a lot of people talk about, is the conditions of Activision Blizzard if the deal doesn't go through. Because we all know on record what has been going on there and that corporation and that company and what happens if they don't. And to me, that's a bigger issue. You know what I'm saying? Because just the way that corporation was being run, and me selfishly as a person who, look, I like COD, but I've kind of like cooled down on COD over the years. So I know all those support studios because High Moon, Vicarious, like these are people that used to also were forced to pump out Destiny content at one point when Destiny was when Bungie was under the Activision deal. So it becomes this, the way Activision was running is you're going to be converted into a COD studio, or you're going to be converted into a content studio. And one of the things that excites me personally, this is just me speaking personally, selfishly, biasly, I will say this, is that the hope that these support studios can be free to do other things besides that. That's one of the things that Phil mentioned that I really resonated with me. Look, I'm gonna tell y'all straight up. High Moon Studios is my heart. High Moon Studios gave me the original Transformers G1 games that were actually quality. War of Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron. Yes. These are some of the best Transformers. And that studio has been relegated to make, at one point, Destiny content and Destiny expansions and what now Call of Duty content. Like, that saddens me. There are tons of IPs that Activision Blizzard have that are dormant that these studios used to handle that can't do anything. So I think that aspect from the Activision Blizzard perspective really resonates with me. And then the other aspect is, look, the conditions of these workers, these people who are fighting for their livelihoods. Like, so we just don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? And we just want to, nope, it's just going to hurt PlayStation gamers and that's it. We're going to, shut this thing down. Like that part really, you know what I'm saying, doesn't resonate well with me. Look, I get it. She's going to have a slant because she's there. But at the end of the day, there is a human element. And people have to take that into account. And we'll see how this thing plays out. Selfishly, I'm not the biggest Call of Duty fan. So I don't have like a super horse in this race with COD sort of perspective. But I get it, and I just hope that once all the information is compiled, right? And we see that in the spirit of competition, this is not illegal. We'll see. And if not, then it's going. If it's not, and it goes to court, or the concession, to your point, Miles, my final point, if the concession is Microsoft must not put this in Game Pass, or must put Call of Duty, in PlayStation Plus, you best believe there's going to be a legal fight going on between Microsoft and the regulators. There's no doubt, because that's something that I think they will fight very hard and potentially could win, because that would be a precedent. We'll see. We'll see how this thing's going to play out. There's a lot of flexion. There's a lot of posturing. We're still in the thick of it, man.
We're still in the thick of it. And yeah, you bring up an excellent point. I think there will be fighting over those concessions. And as much as we hear Xbox saying, Call of Duty doesn't matter that much, Not a big deal. I really think if there's a concession that's forced that says you can't put it in Game Pass, I think that's a concession that dictates the outcome of the deal in its entirety. If you're Xbox Cog and they say you
Mhm.
can't put Call of Duty in Game Pass,
We
you
going to
dropping
war.
this you dropping the 69 billy?
We going to war. We're gonna fight. I'm
See you
taking the
in
whole
court, honey.
FTC. I'm taking the whole FTC. If I'm Xbox and you tell me that I bought something, that I own something to put it in my service that I'm pioneering, I'm blazing a trail, right? In cloud, I'm blazing a trail, so to speak. And well, there's other subscription services exist. But remember, I changed my model from retail, right? If I'm Xbox, I'm speaking corporate Xbox. I changed my model into, a Game Pass, a subscription service where people, could be a part of it. And now you're telling me the thing that I purchased can't go in there. You best believe we go into court. We're gonna fight. And I don't know if that's something that they're willing to do either. So it's gonna get interesting. We'll see what happens. I still think my gut, you put gun to my head right now, Miles. Still think the deal goes through.
I still think the deal goes through. That's
I
where
still
I'm
think
at.
it goes through. Yeah.
Regardless of the updates regarding the FTC and all of that, I still think this deal will go through. I imagine there probably will be concessions in some capacity. That's really what it seems like it's leaning towards, and that's really what companies like PlayStation, pretty much it seems like exclusively PlayStation is fighting for, is some sort of concessions regarding Call of Duty exclusivity or subscription service stuff. Because you see the subscription component and the cloud gaming component brought up a lot. And I think that would be the one nugget of this argument that carries weight, is no one's really positioned in the same way that Microsoft is with cloud. We had
Absolutely.
Google come out. Again, we've talked about the faults of Google and how they've worked and how they handled Stadia. But the reality is Google is a tech giant. Google has more resources and money than really anyone else. They tried to get into cloud gaming and pulled out. And that happened shortly after Microsoft decided that they're going to spend $7.5 billion on Bethesda and then $69 billion on Activision. And you could say, and Google could say and step in and say, well, we couldn't even do it. We couldn't compete. So how the hell is anyone else supposed to compete? That argument is the one bit of this entire thing that I think could carry some sort of weight that would lean to some sort of concession. Outside of that, the exclusivity, quite frankly, nonsense. Let's be real. Like, PlayStation has built a frickin' platform around exclusivity, so they don't get to talk about exclusivity. Imagine this scenario, and it's not apples to apples, but imagine a world where Game of Thrones is too big, HBO. What the heck? Nobody can put out a fantasy drama that can compete with Game of Thrones, so you have to put Game of Thrones on every other service. You can't. No, Game of Thrones cannot be an HBO exclusive because no other fantasy show can No, that is not going to happen. That sounds stupid, and that's basically how this whole Call of Duty exclusivity conversation sounds, because yeah, they've historically just been the exclusive machine. That has been their bread and butter. That's been their go-to. And they know better than anyone how damaging that can be to the other platform.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
We have Microsoft coming out and on the record saying that PlayStation is blocking games from coming to their platform. They're talking about deals that are being worked behind the scenes that make it so exclusive multi-platform titles don't come to their platform. So there's PlayStation knows. PlayStation knows exactly what exclusives can do for your platform. So they don't get to use that one. That one, I think, is just going to be swept away. All right, move on. Anyone who does any due diligence looks at past and say, okay, you don't get to complain about that one. But if you look at Game Pass versus PlayStation Now, the offering, what they deliver, how long it's taken them to ramp up, the fact that some of their big games are in there, but they, again, they're not doing day and date, which I think is the biggest flaw, but they still have really big games, some of their biggest games in there, and they're not competing. They're not competing nearly at all. So that, to me, is the one interesting little nugget out of all of this that I could see being leveraged.
Yeah, my brother, you're preaching. One last point, I know we're going long, is that I honestly think the true thing here, this is a philosophical battle that we're seeing going on. This is Sony wanting to maintain the model that they currently use. Xbox's model threatens their model. And that's what this really is. You know what I'm saying? The Game Pass model, subscription service model, it's disruptive to them, right? And I
Hmm.
get it. To the letter of the law, it actually is. And the fear of that. And that's what this is. But the reality, like you said, we talked about competition ad nauseum. We talked about, having to do things to adjust. And from a generational standpoint, we've seen this. We've seen where PlayStation was forced to adjust during the 360 era and vice versa, with them being the market leader and what they did in the Xbox One generation and the PS4 generation. So that's what this is going on. The key, though, is going to be, and I know we're talking from a common sense perspective, and we're talking from what appears to be a legal perspective, but we are dealing with a group of regulators and people who may not understand fully how the industry works. And if they are to be, I'm not going to say corrupted, I'm just going to say leveraged. If they're going to be leveraged by, certain information, that's what Sony is going to utilize to their advantage. And that's why because if you read it, to be perfectly honest, some of these arguments almost sound fanboyish, to be honest, right? So it's just like, but again, if you're going to prey on the inexperience or the lack of knowledge of people in the space to try to get your perceived goal, and it's up to Microsoft to present the correct arguments to show otherwise, and then hopefully they can meet in the middle somehow and get this thing resolved.
Exactly. That's going to be who wins this out at the end of the day. Whoever has the more compelling argument, whoever convinces these people that what they want for their business is actually good for everyone else. Because again, we talk about it all the time, but both of these companies are just looking out for what's best for the bottom line. I'm glad that you touched on the people aspect of this deal, and that's one thing that I'm really disappointed. We haven't really heard any official statements about what this means for the people, what this means for the culture, because we know it's public record that Activision Blizzard has just had a ugly history with the way it treats employees, and that is not being factored in. If this deal doesn't go through, is Jim Ryan and PlayStation, are they going to step in and try to correct the workplace culture, or no, they don't care about that aspect of it. They just care about getting their cut of that Call of Duty money every single year. We've heard Microsoft, well, I don't know if Microsoft's officially said it, but I imagine that Microsoft would switch up the annual release cadence of Call of Duty as well and allow those teams to work on other projects, allow those teams to have a better work-life balance, and hopefully ultimately create a more stable and healthy work structure for all of these teams. And like you said, give us some more Transformers games. We had Vicarious Visions, who got done so dirty. They did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Oh, yes.
One of the best remakes ever, period. One of the best. And then immediately after that, bye. You're no longer a thing. You get to be helping other people make games. And that's hugely unfortunate. So I would love to see some more creative flexibility there because, again, selfishly, I'm not that big of a Call of Duty guy anymore. I'll play it. I don't hate Call of Duty, but I also don't really care about Call of Duty. So when I look at this deal, much like you, I think about what this means after the fact, what it means for me, what it means for the games that I might get outside of Call of Duty. And that's why I don't care if Call of Duty is exclusive. I think the better business play is to keep it multi-platform so you can use that money to make games that I want,
Preach.
Well said. And I think that's it. I think we've talked enough about the Activision Blizzard acquisition. I think we've talked enough about Call of Duty exclusivity. Huge shout out to everyone who's bearing with us, having some fun with these conversations. Huge shout out to the people dropping amazing jokes, showing support through the Streamlabs link. Cog, for the people who've joined us on this episode, where can they find you?
Yo, shout out to my man Miles on a Chaturday, setting it up. You know what I'm saying? New channel, new digs. I like what you did with the place, man.
Oh, shit. Thanks, man.
You know what I'm saying? We done moved out. We got the new apartment. You know what I'm saying? But nah, salute to you, bro. This is fun. I don't get a chance to guest podcasts like I used to. I miss it. The talking to you made me realize how much I miss it. So try to get back in the flow maybe once a month and get back outside, talk to my man and talk to the people. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Lord Cognito and subscribe to the channel Iron Lords Podcast. Every Sunday's the Lord's Day. Come check us out Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We will have the amazing company of Valari Gaming, man. They actually entrepreneurs in the gaming space. So we're going to be talking about, what's going on there as far as basically they made like this gaming pillow, and I actually use it religiously. Great for posture, try to get gamer health up, talk about them, talk about games, and of course these topics, a little bit of these topics we discussed here, So come check us out there. I also do an Xbox focused podcast called Defining Duke with Last Stand Media with my man Mr. Matty Plays. Go check that out. And if you can, please check out the site lordsofgaming.net. Got some of the brightest up and coming writers in the game, man. I'm very fortunate, very thankful and blessed. We have a great team, great editorial team. I see my man CMBR up in here. That's one of our financial analysts, what I'm saying? He be talking at MPD talk and stuff like that. But I really appreciate the support, man. And yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got. And then make sure, man, hit the subscribe button. Xbox Chaturday, Miles Dompier, new channel. Check that out, man. Gotta send some love, man. And also, I got some good feedback when you guessed it on. First of all, you've been on ILP before. We'll get you back, but that's some good feedback for you on Defining Duke, the episode me and you did together. That was a lot of fun too. So, people like when we link up every now and then. So it was cool.
Oh yeah, dude. Appreciate you. I know you've been busy. I know you've been doing 2 podcasts a week. You've been transitioning into meta. So I appreciate you taking some time. Always love hanging out. Yeah, was great chopping it up on Defining Duke. If you haven't checked that out, there's Defining Duke and then Defining Duke Ultimate, the little Patreon first show. Got to be on that with you, but love having you on, dude. Appreciate everything you do. Appreciate Lords of Gaming. If you haven't checked out the podcast, definitely do. And if you haven't checked out the website, check out what that team's working on. A lot of great, passionate folks out there, getting their feet in the game, getting their feet wet, and you just love to see it. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Huge shout out to you for hanging out, tuning in, whether you're watching live or listening after the fact. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you next week. Have a great one, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.